What's going on, everybody? I'm James Young with jamesyoungphotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom. Today, we're talking about how to edit product photography. So we're gonna take this image here. This is fully edited. This is the exact way that I want it. I think this image pops. So this is where we started, and bam, this is where we're going. So check this out. Now, if you'd like, you can follow along. All you need to do is download the raw file down in the description below. It's absolutely free, and that way you can follow along with this edit. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure the white balance is where I would like it. And for this image, it actually is. I'm gonna leave my white balance exactly where it's at. So from there, I'm gonna scroll down to the tone curve, and I'm just gonna create a little bit of an S curve, and this is going to give me some contrast to work with. So there we go, a nice subtle S, nothing too crazy to start off. So let's go back up to the basic panel, and because this is product photography, I'm gonna go pretty heavy-handed with the contrast options here. So let's crank this up somewhere around like 60, 68 or so, there we go. Now I'm gonna wanna bring my highlights down some, so somewhere around like -30 or so. There we go. For our shadows, this image has a lot of dark spots, so we want to correct for that. So let's open up these shadows quite a bit, somewhere around like +70. There we go. Now for our whites, we wanna bring those up just a tad. There we go, about +20. And then for our blacks, we wanna open up the blacks just a little bit. So let's go up to about +15. Again, a lot of this image takes place in the darker register, so we want to make sure that we get that detail out of the darker areas. So as we make our way down to presence, let's go ahead and add some clarity into this. Clarity is a tricky slider. You never want to go too far with it. Even with product photography, you can go too far. So if I go to +99, you can see that that looks horrendous. Don't do that. So I'm going to press Command Z to undo those changes. And we'll make our way down to the dehaze slider, which is conveniently placed underneath the clarity slider. Shout out to Adobe for hearing my cries. And let's add about +10 to dehaze. This is just another method of adding contrast into the image by removing haze out of the image. So for our vibrance, we want to bring this down just a little bit. This is going to remove some of the colder tones out of the image, and about -20 is going to work just fine. Then we also want to cut through a little bit of that saturation. So for this, we're only going to do about -5. We don't want to get too much of a bleached look, but we do want to cut a little bit of those colors that are coming in a little too vivid. So now a lot of our fundamental editing is already taken place. And so let's take a look at where we were at. And here's how far we've already come just by using the tone curve and the basic module. So we've already made some big changes to the edit. So let's make our way down to the HSL, that stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. And we're gonna start tweaking the colors a little bit here. Now the hue area, we're not going to change anything here, but we are going to change our saturations. Now for this image in particular, we're dealing with some silvers, a lot of blacks, and some orange tones here. So because of that, in the saturation tool, we're going to attack the colder tones here. We already did a little bit with the vibrance, but now we want to really kill those tones. So we're gonna start with aqua, even though that's a little bit more of a green tone, but we're gonna start with that. Bring that down about -50 or so. -57 is fine. Then for our blue, we're gonna cut that quite a bit, somewhere around -70. Purple, about -50 or so. And then our magenta, somewhere around -30. Now you see here, I have a little bit of a curve going on with these sliders. This just ensures that I don't get any funky clipping associated with altering the colors. Now, likewise with our saturation, we're going to modify some of the sliders in the luminance section. So we're gonna start with our aqua, and we're going to do kind of a similar situation here and bring these sliders down, and thus really minimizing any of the colder tones that would have otherwise been found in very subtle ways in this image. And you can see here that while those tones might have been subtle, if we turn this off, boom, you can see all those tones, and it's really kind of distracting. So when we turn it back on, boom, all that silver looks much more rich. And this area here where where there's a reflection off the glass and things like that. All of that has been really, really minimized. Another thing this image is going to need is a little bit of split toning. And when I say a little bit, I mean just a hair of split toning. I think the darker parts of this image can totally use some warmer tones. However, I think the brighter sections of this image can benefit from staying this really almost monochrome like silver. So the way we're going to do that is in the shadows, we're going to select somewhere around 45 on our hue. So a nice warm tone, and we're going to click X to get rid of that. Now for our saturation, 14 is too much. We're going to be really soft-handed with this. We're only going to do 5 on saturation. And I know that this seems like a really tiny thing, but it's in the details where it really counts. Check this out. If I turn it off and I turn it back on, you can see that there is a difference being made here, albeit pretty subtle. But if I did a universal change to the overall white balance, it would have added more yellow into the colder sections of the image than I would have wanted. So let's round this out just a little bit. Let's scroll down to our detail here. For sharpening, I have no problem cranking this up, somewhere around 70-ish. I like that. It's going to bring out much more of that detail. For our noise reduction, we're just going to do somewhere around 30 or 40. There we go. That's just going to smooth out the edges that we added in just a hair. And that about does it for this edit. Now, this type of image might be able to benefit from something like adding grain, but I personally think that that kind of ruins images, so I'm just going to not do that. But you could, of course, do that if you'd like. So at this point, I think that this image is ready to post, ready to print, and just really ready to flood whoever wants to see it. But what do you think? How did you edit the photo? Did you take it in a completely different direction? If you downloaded the raw file, I would love to see what you did with it. So of course you can tag me on Instagram or any other social media website. All that stuff is down below as well. I would love to see what you did. And if you learned something or enjoyed this tutorial, it would be awesome if you left a like and subscribe for more. I'm James Young with JamesYoungPhotography.com, and this is Teach Me How to Lightroom.